This is one of those classic stories, but it's about so much more than just a miracle. It's really about the dramatic ripple effects one event can have on an entire community, pitting neighbor against neighbor, parents against their own son, and one man's lived experience against the rigid structure of power.
So the whole thing kicks off with this single, loaded question. The assumption packed into it is that suffering, especially something as profound as being born blind, it has to be a punishment. A simple, direct equation, sin equals suffering. But the answer they're about to get is going to turn that whole worldview completely upside down.
And the answer is a total paradigm shift. The entire premise of the question is just thrown out. This isn't about punishment. Instead, the man's condition is framed as a stage, an opportunity for something divine to be revealed. So his blindness is redefined not as a sign of darkness, but as the very place where light is about to break into the world.
This sets the scene for the event that acts as the catalyst for everything that follows. And what's fascinating is just how unconventional, how earthy this miracle is. There are no magic words, no grand gestures. It's something much more tangible.
The process itself is kind of strange, almost gritty, spitting on the ground, making mud, and putting it on the man's eyes like a poultice. This isn't some clean, distant act of power. It's deeply physical, grounding the divine in the most basic elements of the earth. And then the man is given a simple, direct command: go, wash.
The outcome is stated with this incredible simplicity. He obeyed and the impossible happened. He could see. This is the moment the first stone is tossed into the pond, and the ripples start to spread, beginning right in his own neighborhood. The transformation is so radical that the people who've known him his entire life, they just can't process it. They get confused and they start debating, is it really him or just someone who looks like him? The man actually has to insist, I am the one. His new identity is so staggering, it's literally unbelievable to those who knew him before.
As word spreads, the conflict escalates. The religious authorities, the Pharisees, get involved. But their investigation isn't really a search for the truth. It's an attempt to control a narrative that threatens their understanding of the world and, more importantly, their authority within it.
But they're not a monolith. The miracle creates a division right in their own ranks. On one side, you have the legalists. He broke the Sabbath by working to make mud, so he must be a sinner. On the other, you have those who are grappling with the evidence. How can a sinner perform a sign like this? They're caught in a logical trap.
Unable to get a confession, they call in the man's parents. The interrogation widens, and the tension just ratchets up. They're trying to find a weak link, any way to discredit the event. But the parents, well, they're caught in a terrible dilemma. To understand their fear, we have to get what was at stake. Being cast out of the community wasn't a minor punishment. It meant being cut off from your social life, your religious identity, and your economic support. It was total isolation. So they give a clever, non-committal answer. He is of age, ask him. They protect themselves, but in doing so, they leave their son to stand completely alone.
And this is the major turning point in the story. The man who was a passive beggar, an object of pity and debate, is now forced to become the central protagonist. He has to find his own voice, and he does it with stunning courage and clarity.
The Pharisees try to corner him one last time. It's an order, not a question. Give glory to God. We know this man is a sinner. They're trying to impose their reality onto his experience.
This just brilliantly illustrates the heart of the conflict. His response is one of the most powerful statements you can imagine. He refuses to get into their theological debate and instead grounds his testimony in one unshakable, undeniable fact: his own lived experience. I was blind, and now I see. You can argue about dogma, but you can't argue with that.
Now he's not just defending himself anymore. He's emboldened. He turns the tables on them with a sharp, sarcastic question, mocking their obsessive interrogation by suggesting they must want to become Jesus' disciples too. This former beggar is now openly challenging the most powerful men in the room.
He then lays out his own simple and devastatingly effective logic. We all know God doesn't listen to sinners. Opening the eyes of a man born blind is completely unprecedented. The only possible conclusion, he argues, is that the man who did it must be from God. He's using their own beliefs to dismantle their argument. Unable to refute his logic, they resort to their last weapon: pure insult and raw power. They attack his very origins. You were born in utter sin. And then they excommunicate him. They can't win the argument, so they just remove him from the board. But being cast out isn't the end of his story. It's the beginning of the final act. where the central theme, the difference between physical sight and spiritual blindness, is made powerfully explicit.
Outside the community that rejected him, he meets Jesus again, and this time, having defended his healer and paid the price, he moves from simply knowing what happened to him to truly believing in who did it. Rejected by the old system, he finds his place in a new one.
The story concludes with a final paradoxical summary. The event worked as a great reversal. It gives sight to those who know they are blind and are willing to see, while at the same time exposing the blindness of those who are certain they can already see everything perfectly.
And that leaves us with the final question. The man who started the day in physical darkness ends it with spiritual sight. The leaders who started the day with perfect vision and religious authority end it clinging to their own kind of darkness. It forces us to ask, who are the truly blind ones in this story?